65, one in custody, being Marco Stevens.
Make sure you bring that BB gun.
Station 3, go and confirm the warrants out of us.
Oh, I got a BB gun. I'm C. Ward. It's a BB gun. And now go them kids, they witnesses, it's a BB gun.
Yeah, well,
it's a BB gun.
On you.
I didn't do nothing. It's a BB gun. They right there, they my witness. I was talking to them, joking with them about a movie, Boys in the Hood. I can't help what somebody else perception is.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
That's all,
it's their perception that counts. They perceived it as a threat, so you are under arrest.
How was it a threat? I was with some kids.
They perceived it as a threat.
Oh my God, now you can't have a BB gun. I'm over 18, so I can have a BB gun.
Well, you're also acting up, too. We've had to deal with you just about every day for... You got a knife? Just got it off of it.
No, you can just pull down the string.
No,
you can wait till I get to jail and take it out.
Better watch it, Marco.
I spit a toothpick in the grass.
Yeah, and the next time you'll eat grass.
You might get that for me. Oh! Don't pull away. You understand?
You understand?
Oh! Don't pull away.
You understand?
Don't pull away.
Don't pull away. You get it? Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
Are you going to straighten up?
Yes, sir.
Because I ain't playing with you today. Do you understand? Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Now, we're going to get up, and you're not going to do anything stupid again. You understand?
Yes, sir.
Umbrella. She's up, she's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live, back again with another episode of The Forecast. So, out in Texas, a young brother by the name of Jordan Edwards, who was just 15 years old, was shot in the head and killed by the police. He was shot by Officer Roy Oliver. Now, of course, this officer is going with the "I fear for my life" story. But let's go back and find out what happened to the brother Jordan Edwards.
67 hours after a teenager was shot and killed by Balch Springs police, an officer has been fired. His actions tonight under investigation. And Jordan Edwards' story has exploded into the national conversation on race and our police. Good evening. I'm John McKay.
And I'm Cynthia Sayeda. A lot of big developments in this case tonight. This is now former Balch Springs police officer Roy Oliver. He's seen here on the department's Facebook page, a department he served for the last 6 years. News 8's Marie Saavedra joins us live now. Marie, the Edwards family is praising the decision to fire this officer.
They are, Cynthia. They said tonight that they're calling this move commendable strides toward justice in the last 24 hours. But this is really just one item on a very long list of things that the Edwards family says they need to have to bring justice to this boy lost at just 15 years old. Saturday night on Barron Drive in Balch Springs, a group of teens had a party. It would be the block where a police officer's decision would cost him his job and the life of 15-year-old Jordan Edwards.
On May 2nd, 2017, Chief Haber terminated Roy Oliver from the Balch Springs Police Department.
The 3-day journey from the teen's death to the firing of Officer Roy Oliver was one of confusion and tension. Initially, Chief Jonathan Haber said the car Edwards was in threatened officers. Monday, he took that back.
The information that I got, the information that I saw, led to that mistake. Again, that's solely on me, and we're going to move beyond that because I've already talked about it.
Tuesday, he said Officer Oliver, who served Balch Springs for 6 years, was terminated for violating policy, though he wouldn't say which ones.
We support the Balch Springs Police Department, but we do not support this officer.
Neighbors applauded the move and the chief's candor.
He owned it. That's what I'm telling you. He owned the situation, and I think that's going to take a lot of tension off of the whole community.
Edwards' family agrees, though a family member told a Dallas crowd at a meeting Tuesday this is only the beginning.
They're moving in the right direction. However, it's not nearly enough. It's not nearly enough.
She says for his sake, they won't stop until there's an arrest and a conviction for that decision made back on Barron Drive. There is one other thing that the family says it wants. It feels that Jordan Edwards and his brothers who were there with him that night of his death had their names painted in a very bad light when that initial incorrect information about what happened came out. So they want a public apology to them from Balch Springs Police.
So Officer Roy Oliver, who was called to a teenage house party, decided to shoot inside of a moving vehicle full of teenagers against protocol. And one of the bullets hit Jordan Edwards in the head, killing him instantly. Now, even though initially the police chief was preparing his Back the Blue speech, when he actually decided to do some investigation on the police officers, he found out the officer, Roy Oliver, said that the car was coming towards him when the video clearly shows that the car was moving away from him, according to the police chief. And in this case, they decide to go ahead and press charges on this particular officer.
New details about what happened seconds before a Balch Springs police officer opened fire on a car, killing a 15-year-old. I'm Steve Eager.
And I'm Heather Hayes. Those details are in the arrest warrant that was issued for fired Officer Roy Oliver. Plus, we're hearing from two teenagers who were sitting behind Jordan Edwards in the back seat of the car when Oliver opened fire with a police rifle.
Oliver turned himself in Friday on a murder charge, and he's now out on bond. Sean Rabb, first on Fox 4 with his new information and the interview with Maximus and Maxwell Everett. Sean.
Yeah, Steve, two teens who still don't understand why things went so wrong so fast 9 days ago, losing one of their closest friends at their first Saturday night house party. Maximus and Maxwell Everett, twins with a story to tell.
We were just 5 innocent teenagers who just was having a good time that night. Cops got called, and everything else that happened is just tragic.
In the backseat of a car with Jordan Edwards and his two brothers, Edwards shot in the head and killed by then Balch Springs police officer Roy Oliver.
No one did nothing wrong in the car, no one.
Two Balch Springs officers arrived at the house party and were inside when what sounded like gunshots rang outside. The officers went looking for the gunfire, the boys leaving the party, driving in reverse away from officers. The arrest warrant says Officer T. Gross gave verbal commands to the driver to stop, exhibited a firearm, and continued ordering the vehicle to stop. The warrant continues, the vehicle continued and stopped shortly, then proceeded to move forward in motion. As the car passed Officer Gross, he punched the rear window with his duty weapon, causing it to break.
I'm not sure. I ducked, so I don't know what he did.
The arrest warrant goes on. Officer Oliver positioned himself behind and to the right of Officer Gross, discharged multiple rounds from his patrol rifle as the vehicle drove past him. 15-year-old Jordan Edwards, mortally wounded, a rifle shot to the right side of his head.
What were you thinking, guys?
I was hoping that I was trying to think about if Jordan was still alive and that this night went crazy too fast.
The boys, glad the investigation quickly led to the arrest of Oliver on the charge of murder.
That's good that happened, because normally it doesn't happen. The same thing. Glad it happened fast enough, because most cases don't ever get charged, and what he did was wrong.
The boys say everyone in the car was separated and that no one told them what was happening for hours. Balch Springs police reviewing actions of all officers that night, including the other officer at the shooting scene, Steve, and the officers who handled the 4 of the people in that Chevrolet Impala.
Right, and Sean, now we know that the second officer did have a gun out, had his weapon out, close enough to bash out the window, so he was close enough to see inside the car. And I don't know of any reports that he ever even thought about shooting. What do we know about? He didn't shoot. We know that, right?
He did not shoot. He was close enough to the car that he could take his duty weapon and punch the window and break the rear window out as the car drove past him. And then the second officer behind and to the right of him opened fire with the rifle. But there's no indication that he thought about shooting his weapon. The law gives police officers the right to pull their weapon and to use it to force you to obey their commands.
Do we know any those young men able to talk about conversation in the car? You know, the driver, we've heard things, maybe couldn't get it in the park or drive or whatever like that from one of the attorneys.
No, what I got from them today is that it was chaos when they heard the gunfire.
Yeah.
Now, before we go celebrating that this cop is charged with murder, first we gotta wait to see what happens. Because we have seen other officers who were charged with murder, and people say that the murder was wrong, and they still walk away scot-free, not like nothing ever happened. Now, Officer Roy Oliver is facing up to life in prison for 7 felony charges against him. But the thing is, the last I've checked, they still haven't set a date for his trial, even though they say the murder charges is going to be the first thing they pursue against him. But even the Dallas County DA, Faith Johnson, had to say that prosecuting Roy Oliver is not a political statement, but the right thing to do. As if charging a cop with murdering a 15-year-old kid, shooting into a car full of teenagers, violating all kind of rules and regulations. But that's something that you would still have to say is not political, as if this kid's death has anything to do with politics.
It's important to let our community know that justice is proceeding effectively and thoroughly at the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. This is the very first time we have issued an arrest warrant for a police officer before the case was presented to the grand jury. As we move forward, my office continues to be committed to seeking justice for Jordan and his family.
What we see now is an aggressive prosecution. He is in a very compromising situation when it comes to what am I going to do. When you talk about a deal being made, if I was the defense attorney, I would be trying to make a deal, because otherwise he's going to prison. Like there's no question now in my mind whether or not he's going to get locked up. I can't tell you what he's going to get locked up on, and I can't tell you how much time he's going to be locked up for, but it's too much to overcome. So at this point in time, I do feel a lot more confident about the state's ability to secure some sort of a conviction.
We believe that we have a very strong case. We're going to be vigorous in our prosecution, and we're going to be very aggressive. So we're planning to win this case.
Even though this is the same cop who was indicted a month before on 2 aggravated assault charges following accusations he pulled the gun on 2 people. And that was an unrelated road rage incident weeks before he shot Jordan Edwards. However, they didn't investigate that case more thoroughly until after he shot this kid, because originally that same police said that no crime occurred. Now, while some people will say this is a moral victory, right now Roy Oliver is free on $700,000 bond related to the murder charge and the aggravated assault charges put together. And the judge decided not to increase that bond for the 4 new aggravated assault charges. And this is the legal system that we're hoping and praying and wishing that we could have faith in, and someday magically everything will just work out. Now, this cop who was already indicted, who somehow was still out on the streets patrolling and caught up in his own lies, can still use the defense of, I feared for my safety, I feared for my life, and we'll see how that plays out for him. Now, what happened to Jordan Edwards was very similar to what happened to the young brother Corin Thomas down in North Carolina, where he was minding his own business, leaving from a party, and he was shot by this dude named Chad Copley. Now, this man was just walking down the street minding his own business, and this guy Chad Copley shoots from his garage and hits and kills this young brother. Now, even though Chad Copley isn't a cop, guess what? He still can use the defense, I feared for my life, I feared for my safety, I feared for the safety of my property. Now, even though this regular average citizen, not even a cop, now, even though they do decide to charge Chad Copley with the murder of this young brother, and even though he could be facing the death penalty, which, let's be real, he most likely won't get, even if he does get convicted. Now, even though they did charge this man, and he could be facing the death penalty, the judge still says, well, we'll give you a bond. It's $1 million bond, but they'll give him a bond, and he's out of jail, and we're still just waiting to see what happens with his trial. Now, the point is, they make it no secret. They see us all as a threat. I don't care if you're 5 years old. I don't care if you're 95 years old. They see us as a threat. so that every time they commit an act of violence on you, it is somehow justified. And they feel comfortable terrorizing us, man, woman, and child, because they've been able to do so for hundreds of years and actually build much success doing it. They can feel comfortable doing this because they've been doing it for hundreds of years without consequence. And we argue about irrelevant stuff when I'm sure there are way more important things we can agree on, like our children not being shot. And we waste time arguing over stuff that was put in place for us to argue over and be divided over, instead of coming together agreeing on the important issues that we all agree on, like us not wanting our children to be shot in the street or harm coming to any of us without some kind of repercussion. Instead of turning our anger inward towards each other, we need to be using that energy to come together to protect ourselves, to use against the society that put us in this situation in the first place, and against anyone who wanted to keep things the same way that they are today, or people who want to go back to how they were a couple hundred years ago. We have to keep our eyes on the prize, and before we celebrate some moral victory, we have to make sure that we follow through. We have to make sure that we get the results first. There are no moral victories. There are victories and there are losses. And we are the only ones that will protect ourselves.
Hello and good evening. Yesterday we showed you leaked body cam video anonymously sent to Fox 4 News showing a Balch Springs police supervisor tasing a man in handcuffs.
We reported how it was other Balch Springs officers who brought the April 2016 incident to the attention of the police chief. Both his department and outside investigators reviewed the incident, and the chief punished the sergeant who used the taser. First on Fox 4 News at 6, James Rose talked to the man who was tased. James.
Guys, Marco Stevenson acknowledges he has a reputation with law enforcement. He says when he found out about a report, he wanted to tell his side of the story, but he did not want to see the video.
He totally did me wrong, but I'm a Christian, so I'm not revengeful. I took it, and I just kept on going.
Marco Stevenson is the man in this Balch Springs police body cam video being tased while in handcuffs. In April of last year, Balch Springs officers responded to a 911 call about a man waving around a pistol in a neighborhood. As the officer with the body cam arrives, you can see Stevenson is on his knees with his hands on his head and appears to be complying. Officers approach with guns drawn. A gun is kicked away, later determined to be a BB gun.
Better watch it, Marco.
I spit a toothpick in the grass.
Moments later, after Stevenson was handcuffed, police say he spit toward one of the officers and was tased.
Don't pull away. You understand? You understand?
All right,
Don't pull away. You understand?
Don't pull away.
Don't pull away. You get it? Do you get it?
Yes, sir. Spit a toothpick out over his shoulder. He's cocky and arrogant, and he had
You spit it over his shoulder?
Over his shoulder, yes, sir.
It was not on his face. We asked him why he's never viewed the police video, even after we showed it in our story Tuesday evening.
I've lived through it myself, so I didn't want to look at it because I don't want to traumatize myself and think about how the injustice in Balch Springs is going, so I told myself not to look at it.
Stevenson is well known to police, being booked into jail 36 times for charges ranging from criminal trespass to drug possession. He even pleaded guilty to aggravated assault on a Balch Springs officer. He never filed a complaint against the officer who tased him, despite other Balch Springs officers urging him to report it.
I had 2 officers come to me and say I need to report it, but I said it's like a hornet's nest. If I hit the hornet's nest, some gonna come after me, some gonna go the other way.
Balch Springs Police Chief Jonathan Haber says the sergeant's own officers ended up reporting the incident to him, and the video was reviewed by the Texas Rangers and the Dallas County DA's Public Integrity Unit. Neither agency found evidence of criminal wrongdoing, but the chief reprimanded his sergeant and put him on no contact with the public until he completed a series of training courses. Do you feel somewhat relieved knowing that other cops said this is not okay and they went to the chief?
Yes, sir, because that lets me know there are some cops that are righteous, that are doing the right thing.
Now, Stevenson says it was 2 white officers that urged him to report the incident, and it wasn't until we spoke this morning, he says, that he realized it was those Balch Springs officers who reported their own sergeant. He says he did not know the sergeant was punished, but now says he believes that punishment should have been more severe. We asked the police department for a response today, but we were told there would be no further comment.
How do you feel about what happened to you?
How do I feel about what happened? How would anybody feel getting shot?
Still visibly in pain and haunted by the night he was shot at 15 times by Escambia County Sheriff's deputies nearly a month ago. It all happened when a neighbor called 911 after spotting Roy Middleton rummaging through a car on his own driveway. He was mistaken for a car thief and unarmed when confronted by police.
They've said that you were reaching towards something and that you lunged at them. You made a lunging motion
No,
towards
why would I lunge at someone who's halfway down my driveway? How am I going to lunge at them with what? You know, I was getting ready to do what they asked me, raise my hands, and I got shot in doing that.
The Escambia County Sheriff has, all along, defended the actions of his officers, who remain on paid administrative leave.
The point to making the comment about the lunging was his herky-jerky movements that he was making, and again, a failure to follow the deputy's instructions.
Shot in his own driveway, outside his own car, while holding his car keys. He says his leg is now shattered, held together by metal rods. Middleton said the whole thing happened in about 30 seconds.
They should have asked me, did I live here, or ran my address and license plate or something. So, you know, before somebody's a suspect in your own yard, suspecting of what?
Police disagree.
Mr. Middleton was most assuredly a suspect for this scenario up until such time that he was identified. He was a suspect in an attempted car theft. I have an eyewitness that stated that called in to my folks, and that's what they responded to.
Middleton says he couldn't have done anything differently to change the outcome.
Were you sober that night?
Sure. I had a beer, a couple of beers earlier that day around 2 o'clock.
Adding insult to injury, he says he was handcuffed by deputies while he thought he was dying.
Do you ask yourself, why? Why did this happen to me?
I ask myself why. Yeah, why they shot me first, and then why shoot so many times afterwards. Yeah, I ask why. That's all I can ask, why.
Do you get any answers?
No, not yet.
Now, the police finna pull up. Y'all call the police? He bagging up. He got his gun out. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. They got their guns out. Oh, he just killed this man. Damn. Oh, my God. They just killed him. Oh, here we go again. They just killed this man. He's dead. Look how they flipping him over and that nigga already dead, man. That's fucked up, dog. We're putting him in cuffs. He's dead. Oh my God. They just killed this man. He didn't have a gun on him. They cuffing him. Why they now they cuffing him. He already dead. He already dead. Y'all see this for yourselves. The man is already dead. They cuffing him. They cuffing him. I got everything on camera. From the time it started in everything. Oh my God. They just killed him, y'all. He dead. This is just like, I don't even know what to do. Oh my God, he's still holding his gun out. The man is dead.
Roll down that window, please. Can you roll down this window? Huh? Because you're... Give me your right name. You're giving me false info. Do you want to be charged on that? I'm trying to work with you guys. I'm letting your friend go on a warrant, and you're giving me somebody else's name that you're calling.
Are you kidding me? Are you? Push your hands on your back. Push your hands around your back now.
Kill me. You're giving me false info. Do you want to be charged on that? I'm trying to work with you guys. I'm letting your friend go on a warrant, and you're giving me somebody else's name that you're calling.
Are you kidding me? Are you? Push your hands on your back.